What's up, Chris?
Uncertainty. No.
Yes.
No. There's all kinds of what's going on, Jay? How are you doing today?
Doing good. Heads
That's good.
bouncing from this side to that side. Just
Yeah,
watching the stories going on today.
that's right. No question. Welcome everyone to the e-commerce hour. By On the Rocks. I'm Chris, and he is Jay, and we're your hosts for today. We haven't. It's been a little bit since we've talked, but it's good to see you. In uh,
Uh,
in like all kind. Yeah, go ahead,
can I
Jay.
ask you a stupid question? Are we just
Uh,
our hosts for today? Because we've been their host for a year now.
I'm Chris and he's Jay, and we're still your hosts.
There you go. There you go.
Jay, I have a question for you. Had you ever heard of the U.S. Court of International Trade, Jay?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
never,
no, me neither.
never.
The U.S. Court of International Trade has has made our tariff problems just fascinating. The what a time to be alive, I think, is the
Yeah,
right answer here.
yeah, yeah.
As we've talked about on this show several times, tariffs have a huge impact on e-commerce providers, particularly those who are importing goods from overseas. The president, without much really fight we were aware of, has been kind of unilaterally choosing to assess tariffs against imports from different countries, based on the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Um, Yesterday, or we're recording on Thursday today, Thursday at 3:40 p.m. Central Time, just in case everything changes again in another hour,
Oh, and it
um,
will.
and it
Before we
probably
go to
will.
bed tonight, there will be some other change that's going to
That's right.
happen here. So the
The
only thing that is predictable is the unpredictability of all of
That's right.
this.
So again, as if it wasn't unpredictable enough that the president of the United States was making tariff claims and then changing them, after conversations and different amounts of times and whatever other taco activity was going on. If that wasn't complicated enough, yesterday, Wednesday, that would be May 28th, just in case we get any kind of confusion there. The U.S. Court of International Trade, which Jay and I had never heard of, ruled that the president's sweeping tariffs were unlawful. Um, the court found that the president had exceeded his authority, saying that it was Congress who has the ability to set broad tariffs, not the president. Um,
But they didn't rule it on all of the tariffs.
Yeah, it was basically the 10% blanket tariff.
Yep.
Said that that's not really how it works, right? You said when we were talking about emergency economic issues, you were talking about these particular types of things, and these tariffs don't have anything to do with that. So
Exactly.
that makes them unlawful. That was the court's ruling. Of course, the administration said, well, we don't really agree with you, so we're going to appeal that. And naturally, earlier today, and this is why Jay and I are making jokes that by tonight it'll be something different. Earlier today, a federal appeals court has temporarily stayed the lower court's decision, meaning that the tariffs, while they were off for maybe 24 hours or so, something like that, they are back on, while the legal process continues. Originally, that scope of the ruling, the court's decision specifically targeted tariffs enacted under the IEEPA. Other tariffs, such as the 25% steel tariff and some of the tariffs on China that were under Section 301, those were still remaining in place because they were under different statutes. So, if it wasn't complicated enough, now it's just even more complicated. And Jay, every time we talk about these things, like we like to put some spin on, like, hey, here's what this means for you, right? And so, Jay, I'm super curious. If you were importing goods, like, what would you do? What would you advise someone to do now?
Yeah, at this point, it's like, what the fuck is
Yeah,
going on?
yeah, right.
It's like we already have all this uncertainty, and then we have a stay, and then an appeal of the stay, and now we're going to have a hearing in a couple of weeks where both sides are going to write briefs and present them to the judges. It's like, come on. At this point, what do you do? Because this morning, my thought was, all right, if I paid a tariff, am I applying for a refund? How do I get my money back? Now I'm
Right.
like, oh, what the fuck am I going to do? I don't know.
That's right. It is so difficult. The thing that you have to do, right, is to understand that this is actually the advice that we gave you a long time ago, and so that advice hasn't changed, and that's to be adaptable, because there is continued uncertainty that's surely going to be happening, right?
Yeah.
We know that now there's some court activity, right? It's gone through a layer of appeals. It can and will. I think I don't know how many layers we have to go up, how many are left, but I'm sure there's
Yeah.
not zero.
Yeah.
Um, and 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 it's certain to me, like the reason that this lawsuit came up in the first place, actually, at least from what I heard as I was listening to some podcasts about it yesterday, the reason that it came up was because some parties have been injured by these tariffs, and they're like, well, you can't even do them. Why are you even doing them? You're not supposed to be able to, and it's hurting me, right? And I think that those people who are being hurt are the people who are watching the show. Right? They're the people who
Right.
who are now having to pay these significantly higher prices for these goods, who are now having to deal with all of this uncertainty, and that is, I mean, that is a very unusual justification, right? But it is actually a very real one, and so it is interesting to see that this is happening. Um,
So there were two parties that filed suit. There were, I
yeah,
believe, 12 small businesses in one
sure,
case and a number of individual states in another case
right,
that brought these claims. And basically, they're claiming that the executive branch has certain limited rights to enact tariffs, but it must be done by Congress. And Congress has not touched these tariffs. Therefore, they are deemed unconstitutional. So we will leave this to the courts, I guess, at this point. But, like we said a couple weeks ago, when we went from 145% to 30%, at this point, at least it's palatable.
right,
It's okay. And I mean, ultimately, I would love to see the 30% rollback as well,
right,
back to its original, whatever that rate was before we started all of this rigmarole. But,
right.
at this point, it's like, all right, it's May 28th. Prime days are coming up in a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah,
And Black Friday, Cyber Monday is coming up. It's coming
yeah,
up.
5 months
We
later,
have to
yeah.
place our orders to have our goods in stock so we can sell it. And at this
Absolutely.
point, it's like, all right, it's a 30% tariff. Let's go ahead, place our orders. And, they're not going to ship for a little bit. Maybe we'll get the decision. The tariffs will be removed, although the 30% is probably not due to it being part of Section 301. But
Yep.
at this point, at least get those orders going. And you have some idea of what it's going to cost you. And, you got to have the inventory to sell it for the holidays. If not, you're going to lose out on your busiest shopping days of the year. And the whole thing was all for naught. And, instead
Yeah.
of making money, you probably lost money at this point because, let's face it, it's that Black Friday deal and Prime Days that, puts you in the black. So let's get that goods on order and get it in. And, there might be some uncertainty to that price. Reach out to your financial advisor. That would be
Yeah.
a CPA or CFO like Chris or myself that could help you with some cash flow numbers, help you know what you're going to need, what kind of numbers you're going to need on your line of credit so that you can
Yeah.
have the funds to pay for it. So,
Well,
that's what it comes down to.
right, and it's the same thing again. We've been talking about this all the time. You can use the landed cost calculator uh, to help you to identify, like, do I need to change my prices, and what do these updated tariffs really mean for me and my business, and how much of an appetite is there? Like, how flexible is the demand? Because I think the markets more broadly have been expecting, like, costs to consumers to raise. Like, everybody kind of understands that that's what's going to happen here,
Yeah.
and the markets have not really cared for these tariffs when they went out originally. That was some of the historically worst days in a couple decades. And the markets like enjoyed the idea for a short period of time that the tariffs were going to be away for a little while.
Yeah, sure did.
Um, but that all just speaks to again how important it is for you to understand what your situation is, what types of exposure you have to these tariffs, whether they're coming or going, and then also to build a plan around it, so that you, like Jay was talking about, so you can get the appropriate financing, make sure that you have goods here and on order to get here on time, for those critical seasons of the year.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, if you have goods coming into the U.S. that are based on the Liberation Day tariffs, there is a possibility that that appeal will be lost and it will be deemed unconstitutional. And at that
Yeah.
point, if you did pay those tariffs, you will be able to apply for a
Back.
refund.
Yeah.
That we don't know how, but when that time comes, we will figure that out and let you know how to do that.
Yeah.
But at least let's
Probably through the US
look at it
Court of
on the bright
International
side.
Trade.
Yeah, exactly. And at some point, you might be getting a refund on those tariffs. And odds are it won't be coming by check, be coming through electronic transfer, because the government will not be using checks any longer. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and so again, this is just another like spike of big news here, right? That impacts e-commerce providers all over the place. What's going to happen next? Like, it's hard to say, right? Obviously, White House officials are arguing that trade deficits represent a national emergency that justify the tariffs, which to me is maybe the silliest argument of all time. Um, there just will be continued uncertainty, right? As the effects of this lower tariff rate maybe are like uncertain, right? Like Jay mentioned, right? The tariffs currently are lower than they got to, but I think we're what, maybe 30 days through the 90-day pause or whatever, the reassessment from before.
I'm trying to think that through where we are there.
Yeah, what day?
I
was
don't
it?
remember the date that went into effect, but
Yeah, May 2nd,
regardless,
right?
they're already threatening 50% EU tariffs
EU
at
tariffs,
this
I
point.
know.
So
Yeah.
the 90-day number is just a number thrown out there to try to get meetings set up, and so far we're aware of 3 meetings,
Yeah.
and there have been frameworks of deals, but no deals. So.
Right. Right.
And
So
the whole deal with China, we're talking, barring Chinese students now. So I don't know how that's going to impact those conversations, but it will at some point.
yeah, there's no question, and like I think that I think we agree, right? This could have been done in a better way. Just more broadly, right? There are different ways to execute this kind of strategy, but again, I think for the purposes of this show, we want to like quickly summarize for you what like literally happens next,
Yeah.
and then and then tell you to just brace for uncertainty. That's really great advice, but that is what it is, right? So the next layers here, both parties have been ordered to submit written briefs to the appeals court by early next month, and that is only like a week away. We are almost to June already.
Yeah.
If the appeals court or potentially the Supreme Court upholds that lower court's ruling, the international trade or the Court of International, oh my gosh. International Trade Court, yeah, the Court of
Yes.
International Trade. God, I don't
Yes.
even remember the name already. There are some other legal avenues that the administration can like explore, right? This is kind of the other silly part, right? Is we made these tariffs under XYZ policy, now we're just going to do them under ABC policy instead. So like that is definitely a thing, and of course with the with the Congress like in the same control with the same party as the president himself, like there is at least some ability there potentially to just pass the tariffs through Congress, right? Where I don't know exactly how that process would work or how long it would take. I'm sure it's not as easy as like pass that through to Congress, but seems like it's an option at least.
There were a number of Republican congressmen and senators that were dead set against the tariffs. So I think it will be a much more difficult job trying to push through a tariff bill through Congress than it was the big beautiful bill.
That's still not through
That's
Congress.
still not through.
It's
It's
through one
just through the
side.
House, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the battle yet to be had there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then finally, the government has until June 9th to instruct custom authorities on whether to continue collecting the disputed tariffs pending further court decisions. Now, I think, Jay, you and I both know that the government is going to have no problem telling people to continue to collect those tariffs.
Yep.
And so, to your point, I think it's still worth planning for a 30% tariff right now, even if it is an unlawful one. And know that that if you are paying it and it ends up coming to that that it shouldn't have been in place, you'll get your e-check later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
I mean, plan for the worst, budget for the best. I mean, plan for the best, hope for the plan for the worst, hope for the best. So
that's right.
Just plan on paying the tariff, and
Right.
in the long run, hopefully, it is deemed unconstitutional and the stay remains, and you will get a refund. Best of both worlds.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah.
There there are some tariffs. So again, if you're doing business with China, that tariff is still in place. That was under the Trade Act of 1974. So that we may be part of the uncertainty of this, right? Is like what actually went off and what actually remained on. The reciprocal tariffs, which were the poster board of trade deficit calculation thing that was really annoying in the first place. Like that, those ones are part of what's off. The blanket 10% is off, and the fentanyl tariffs with Canada and Mexico. I think those ones were also off, but back on. Right, they were in limbo. But the steel and aluminum ones for Canada and Mexico, those ones are going to still be in effect. That's not at question, and some of the China ones are as well.
So do we assume that auto parts is part of the Section 232 auto tariffs?
Probably. I would expect that.
I would think so.
Yeah, but I don't. Jay, I'm not all that familiar with Section 232, and so I haven't read that one.
Yeah.
But I bet it is included in there. So again, all that to say, right? We've gone through this conversation. We've talked about we were off and now we're on, and we don't know whether we'll be off or on. The most important thing is that there are going to come situations where the government might be doing things that are unlawful anyway, and just keep doing them, right? The make me attitude. That means that you definitely should be planning to at least in the short term, until we hear otherwise, plan to pay the tariff, because they're going to continue to collect it at least until June 9th, and probably longer than that, regardless of what happens. So as we've been coaching you this entire time, be flexible, understand your needs, and make sure that you have explored already. If you haven't been exploring different options and understanding exactly what your exposure is, now is a very, very important time to do that. Especially as, like Jay mentioned, we're coming up on both Prime Days and when are they? Like late June or early July?
Mid-July, I believe.
Mid-July.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on Prime Days, and then again, it's not. Feels like it's, November feels like a long time away, but it's really not that far. We're only 6 months out. So even if you're, this is that time, right? It's time to get those orders in so that your production can happen, so that you can get it here. So know that you're running out of time to wait it out. There's just really no way to know exactly what's going to happen. So all you can do is understand that that's the case, and do the best you can.
I would definitely recommend analyze the landed cost of your products with and without the tariff calculations included. Yeah. That way you can make sure that you have your sales price, and your sales price is dialed in to the profit margins you're trying to achieve, so you know where you stand and whether you need to raise prices, not raise prices, or if you're going to eat some of that tariff, or you're going to try to get your supplier to eat some of it. So at least have that understanding of your selling price, so you are ready to go when you get that product. And I would run those numbers both ways so you have it and completely understand it.
Yep. And that's an important thing, right? And again, like Jay mentioned as well earlier, you don't have to do that by yourself. There are folks like us out there that help to do exactly that kind of thing, and love doing so. So make sure that that if you're uncomfortable doing that, or if you don't have time, which both of those things can be very real, make sure that you find an advisor that you trust to be able to assist you with that. Because that's exactly what we're for, and it's exactly the type of thing that allows you to have the peace of mind that's associated with like knowing what the situation is, and allows you to have the best decision making opportunities that you can. So I think Jay, that's exactly the advice that we've been giving for months, but now it's just that much more real.
Yeah.
And now too, again, as we get closer and closer to those like critical sell days, like that's that much more important now.
So it's time to start breaking it down, measuring the impacts, and seeing what it really means. And again, hopefully, in the long run, it's not going to mean anything if it all gets deemed unconstitutional, but we shall see, and go from there.
And you know what, Jay, when we find out, we'll be right here on the e-commerce hour to talk to you about it and tell you all about it, and give you the advice that you need to be flexible and expect uncertainty some more next week or whenever it is. Actually, next week, no, that's not what's happening. Next week, Jay, we're talking about Shopify. Are you?
I was going to say, we are taking the uncertainty out. We're telling you right now what we're talking about next week.
That's right. No uncertainty for next week on this show.
The Summer 25 edition.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear about it, Jay. I know you've been digging a little bit into what's going on there, and it's and if I read the articles correctly, the ones I wrote about it, it's not a boring one. There's some good stuff coming on there. Yeah. There's some exciting things happening.
I can't wait to dig into it.
Yep, and I can't wait to talk about it next week. So hopefully that one won't be like as controversial as tariffs. What are the courts doing? What's the president doing? Who's right here? Who's right and who's wrong? Shopify is making their product better. Hopefully, and that's the thing I think we all can support.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So a little more positive spin next week. Anyhow. Thank you everyone for spending some time with us this afternoon. We know you again. It's an airplane pitch. We know you have lots of places you can spend your viewing time, and you spent it today with us talking about tariffs that may or may not be in effect by the time you watch it. So so maybe this will be outdated and by the time we get it posted. But if not, thank you again for spending some time with us. If you need advice or if you are running into problems, put it in the comments. We want to get feedback. We want to hear what people are actually experiencing and how these changes are impacting true business owners and their decision making. We'd love to get those personal stories so that we can talk about them and highlight them and point out exactly what these things are doing to folks, because clearly it did enough to 12 small business owners that they wanted to sue about it. So they're definitely not alone, and you aren't either if you're having problems with this. So know that there's some support out there, and know that we'll be right here to talk about it going forward.
So if 12 small businesses can make a difference, so can you. So just remember that.
Boom, done. Put it in the TikTok. If 12 small businesses can make a difference, so can you. Love it. Well, again, thank you everyone for taking some time with us. We'll be back here next week to talk about the summer edition. So looking forward to that. I'm Chris. He's Jay. We're your hosts, and we'll be your hosts next week too.
All right, everybody. We are out of here. Everybody. Have a great week. Bye now.